Marketing in 2025 is wild. Savvy customers spot fake messaging instantly, privacy changes make ad targeting a nightmare, and everyone needs more content than ever. That's why you have to check out HubSpot's new marketing trends report. It doesn't just show you what's changing, it shows you exactly how to deal with it. Everything's backed by research, but focused on marketing plays you can use tomorrow. You ready to turn marketing hurdles into results? Go to clickhubspot.com/marketing to download it for free. Good morning, everybody, and happy St. Paddy's Day. Today is Monday, March 17th. I'm John Weigell here with Matt Wolfe, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. Apple's Siri is delayed yet again. Microsoft might be eyeing a split from OpenAI, and AI art auctions made thousands. There's a ton to get into today as we welcome back Matt Wolfe from the Next Wave podcast to break down the past few weeks in critical AI news and talk about a super useful few new AI tools that might have gone under your radar. We'll chat about that in a bit, but first, let's give you the news in business and tech. To start us off today, can Amazon record anything you say to your Alexa device? Well, if that wasn't a yes before, it is really one now. All voice recordings will now be sent to the company's cloud starting on March 28th. Previously, users had the option to send recordings to the cloud or process requests locally. Amazon informed its Alexa customers on Friday that users who have, quote, do not send voice recordings enabled will no longer have that option. Next, we're hoping lawyer isn't your dream job because not only did we hear the hours can get pretty intense, but getting into law school is actually looking pretty difficult nowadays. The number of applications to the almost 200 law schools in the US rose 20.5% over just last year. From there, we go to Starbucks. Starbucks is going to pay $50 million in damages to a delivery driver who sued after he, quote, suffered severe burns, disfigurement, and debilitating nerve damage to his genitals when an improperly secured lid caused hot drinks to spill all over his lap. And finally, Virgin Atlantic is partnering with startup Joby Aviation to bring air taxis to the UK. This is big. Customers will be able to book a seat in an all-electric Joby aircraft, which takes off vertically and can reach speeds of about 200 miles an hour while being 100 times quieter than an airplane. And you can book that through the Virgin Atlantic website and app. Folks in the UK, let me know how it is. Hey everybody, I've been listening to this awesome podcast lately. You know it, you love it. My First Million, hosted by Sam Parr and Sean Puri, is brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. My First Million features famous guests like Alex Hormozi, Sophia Amoruso, and Hassan Minhaj, sharing their secrets on how they made their first $1 million and how to apply their learnings to capitalize on today's business trends and opportunities. Talk about somebody that's really in the now. They had on Mr. Beast recently, and Mr. Beast talked about his origin story and how he made his first $1 million and how you can make anything go viral if you really try to do it, which is a great listen. So I would definitely recommend checking it out. You can catch all the recent episodes whenever you want, and you can listen to My First Million wherever you get your podcasts. And moving on to the main story today, we have a great conversation with Matt Wolfe from the Next Wave podcast about what's happening right now in AI. Matt, how you doing? It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great for you to be here again. I wanted to start off with just a quick conversation about AI art. So AI art obviously has been a thing for a while, and it's kind of been getting a lot of traction recently. There was just an auction held in March that got in over $700,000 in sales of AI art. What I want to know from you is, do you see this blowing up still and being a thing, or is it kind of in that NFT category of it's big now and maybe it won't be big in a year or two?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because I believe it was a Christie's auction, right? That was the big auction that just happened with the AI art. And the people that I know that were involved with that auction that actually submitted art to it, they're not like, hey, I just went to Midjourney and typed, make me a dog with funny colors and eating a taco, right? It wasn't that type of art that was being submitted to the Christie's auction.
Gotcha.
It was like Rafiq Anadol, it was Claire Silver, it was some actually really big names that are well respected in like the AI art community. And these are people that like put a lot of effort into their art. It wasn't people that just hit a prompt, took the art, submitted it to the auction. And I think there's a sort of big difference there. I think if these AI art auctions start taking images that are just, I prompted this, got the art, and submitted it, that's kind of weird, right? Because now it's like,
sure,
there was no effort involved.
Anybody could do it.
Yeah, but the art that was like submitted was actually like really intense, in-depth art that took a lot of effort. A lot of different tools were involved. A lot of prompting was involved. A lot of probably, pulling it into Photoshop and making their own tweaks on it. It wasn't just like click and get the art. So I think, when it comes to like the auction type stuff, I don't really think it's in that like NFT territory, as long as there was like a lot of effort and a lot of creativity put into it versus just, getting a prompt and then getting an image.
OpenAI released Sora a little while ago. There was a lot of rumblings at the time about that happening and it completely, destroying Hollywood and Bollywood and whatever film industry we have. But, I really haven't seen much of it since its launch. I wonder on your end, have you seen a lot of AI video taking up as well in the space, or have you also kind of not really seen the delivery on it yet?
Yeah, I mean, there is some AI art that's starting to make it into Hollywood. One of the movies, I think it was The Brutalist, that actually won an Academy Award, used quite a bit of AI. One of the main actors in that movie had a thick accent, and they actually used AI to sort of correct his voice and make the accent sound more like the accent the character was supposed to have. And there was a lot of backlash that movie used AI and then won an Academy Award.
Wow.
But the director was like, yeah, but the actor still did all of the acting themselves. They still spoke all the lines themselves. All of it was still the way normal Hollywood was doing it. We just used AI to sort of help make the voice a little bit closer to what we imagined. You've got tools like Wonder Studio, which are tools like you can have a real human walking around inside of a scene, and then you can go and replace it using AI with any sort of character that was generated on a computer and sort of replace the human. I mean, it's not that different than what they did with like Gollum in Lord of the Rings or Caesar in Planet of the Apes.
Yoda,
Yeah, exactly. They had a real human, and then, that actor was just sort of digitally replaced by a different character. Well, now AI is able to do that just a little bit easier. It doesn't take 10 different animators working on it. You can have one person go use a tool like Wonder Studio and swap out the character. We're still using computer-generated effects that are replacing humans in the real scene, but a human still has to do that acting. And I think that's something that, I still think people can appreciate. Somebody still had to do that initial acting.
Sure.
I think when it gets to a point where we're just like prompting Pixar movies, I feel like people are going to be less interested in that.
Yeah, a lot of the time they don't really meet the criteria that you want from a piece like that. Another part of the industry I'd love to talk about actually is that there's been a ton of conversation about AI agents. With OpenAI specifically is going to offer specialized agents. It says that it's going to charge anywhere from $2,000 to $20,000 for these agents, depending on how complex they are. So what do you make of the future of this type of software?
Talking about the sort of like $2,000, $20,000 a month agents, those are sort of very, very specialized, and they're designed for, big research companies that have tons of scientists on board, and they have a ton of investment money, things like that. The idea is that it can help them have like another PhD level person. I don't really see that actually replacing people doing the research. It's sort of like another tool in their arsenal to help them do the research. I do think we're going to see AI agents really, really bubble up even more. We've already kind of seen it in the first quarter here of 2025 with tools like Manus and Operator, and, OpenAI just rolled out their new API. So we're going to see other developers start to build these agents as well. But again, I just think they're tools that'll help people get to their end result a lot faster, not necessarily replace humans.
Sure.
And, the higher the cost gets, the less the actual benefit of AI that we're seeing, right? Like the sort of running joke is pretty soon we're going to have to replace AI with humans because it's getting more expensive to use these AI tools than it is for like humans to go in and do it themselves. But again, I think these are just tools that are going to be really, really helpful to get people to their end result. You know, when it comes to like business, there's this concept of a lot of businesses do well when you have two sort of founders. You have the visionary and you have the integrator. This is sort of like a Gino Wickman concept. And I think the era that we're going into is a great era for visionaries. If you've got a vision of what you want to create, you've got all of these tools at your disposal to create your vision. We're kind of entering an era where it might be a little bit rougher for the integrator side of that equation because the integrator portion could be done with AI. But if you're an idea person, you're a visionary, you have ideas of where you want your business to go and what you want to accomplish, and this is the end goal, these tools are making it a lot easier to get to your end goal. So I don't know. It's this interesting place where I do think if you're that integrator, you're the doer, you're the person that sits down and writes the code or, draws the art or that kind of thing, it might be a little bit tougher. But if you're the idea guy or girl, this is getting to a place where this is your time right now.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of piggyback off that chat about AI tools. And I wanted to know any or one specific one maybe that you have been using or you think is really, really great that maybe not a lot of people are talking about right now?
It's interesting because I'm in my own like little AI bubble. So it's hard for me to say like, I don't know who's talking about this one right now. But I use Cursor a lot. Cursor is an AI coding tool that connects to any sort of AI model you want. I've been using that like crazy to quote unquote vibe code. I sit around and I write little apps that help me in my own business and help me get over bottlenecks. So I use that one constantly. On a recent episode of The Next Wave, we actually opened up the AI agent Manus app, played with that, had it do a bunch of research for us and build a whole e-commerce site for us that by the end of the episode was working. And it only took about 20 minutes to build a whole e-commerce site.
Wow.
That was really, really cool to see.
Pretty cool.
I use Perplexity constantly. I pretty much never use Google search anymore. It's like I go in Perplexity everything now when I have a question. Those are probably my most used tools at the moment, Cursor, Perplexity, and then I still chat with ChatGPT quite often just to sort of brainstorm ideas.
Water cooler talk with ChatGPT, right?
Exactly.
That's great. No, thank you for all that. That's some great insight. Last few things here I want to talk about is some big company stuff. We were talking about OpenAI before. It looks like Microsoft is kind of developing its own reasoning models for AI to kind of compete. It looks like, even though it's a major stakeholder in OpenAI.
Right.
What do you make of that? It seems like there's a little tension there, a little rift might be existing.
Possibly. The way I see it is a lot of the sort of rift and tension is more created by the media than it is actually created by those companies. I just see all these companies as hedging their bets.
Yeah.
You know, Microsoft actually made big investments in Llama about a year ago, Meta's version of AI. So they've been doing this for a while. They're just sort of hedging their bets. You know, part of the agreement with OpenAI and Microsoft was that if OpenAI reaches AGI, this sort of point where AI is smarter than all humans, that their sort of contract is done.
Wow.
Right? So I think they're sort of setting up their own internal stuff, but I don't think they have any plans on sort of abandoning OpenAI. Pretty much all of the features that OpenAI rolls out, like the very next day, you get an announcement from Microsoft that they just put those features inside of Copilot,
right,
you know, inside of whatever tool they're rolling out. So I think the tensions are sort of like oversold by the media. I don't think it's as big of tensions as people realize. I mean, OpenAI is also partnering with Oracle and SoftBank on that whole Project Stargate thing. And OpenAI's view, they're like, cool, the company that is creating all of this tech that we get to use whenever we want has a ton more money that doesn't have to come from us.
Yeah. Sure.
I just see it as them hedging their bets and sort of making sure that if OpenAI ever does sort of bail on them and go in a completely different direction, they're not sort of left hanging.
When we talk about that, when we talk about maybe potentially falling behind, it seems like a lot of people and a lot of media have been spinning Apple as having a big problem in that realm.
Yeah.
They had some delays with Apple Intelligence. They just delayed Siri again. What do you think's holding them back over there? And is anything holding them back? Do you think they're in a good position anyways?
I think they're in a pretty decent position. This has sort of been Apple's MO all along. They're never the first on anything. They weren't the first to the smartphone. They weren't the first to the tablet. They weren't the first to the computer. They're never the first to market. I feel like their sort of game plan has always been let other companies prove a concept, prove that something is something that the market actually wants. And once we know the market wants this, all right, now let's jump on board with our better version, our version that people are going to like even more because we're better at packaging, we're better at marketing, we're better at sort of
user experience, intuitive.
Yeah, exactly. That's always been Apple's MO. And I think they're just kind of doing the same thing. When it comes to this sort of delay of rolling out the new version of Siri, I just think they're thinking of user experience first. They're just going, if we baked this in right now, the user experience isn't going to be what we're excited about, what users are going to actually want. Let's sort of push it out. Google's had some missteps, right? Google had some issues where it was creating, Black Vikings and Asian Nazis and stuff like that. Apple doesn't want to be in that position when they roll out their AI. Yeah. So they're just thinking of the user experience and they're letting the other companies make the mistakes first, and then they're going to fix it. That's sort of my take on what Apple does.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, this has been happening many, many times with every piece of Apple technology that's ever come out. And it makes a lot of sense. They want to wait. They want to Applify it, take what people have done and just make it their own. So that's a really smart way to look at it. But Matt, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking with you. And thanks for all your insights, and really appreciate you coming on, and would love to have you back real soon.
Absolutely. Likewise. Love nerding out about AI, so it's always fun.
I love hearing you nerd out about it. Thanks a bunch, Matt.
Yep.
All right, that'll do it for us today. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor is Robert Hartwig. Our executive producer is Darren Clark. We've got a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go sign up at thehustle.co/email and follow us on Instagram at thehustledaily. We will see you tomorrow.